welcome to Embody Your True Color Love, a place where we unlock the power of love and find acceptance, growth, and self-discovery. I'm Pratima Prashnajit. If there's one thing you should know about me and one thing all of my friends and family know, it's that I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. The books, the movies, the theme park. In fact, I'm wearing my Gryffindor Quidditch t-shirt as I record this podcast. Oh yeah. What's even more inspirational than the Harry Potter series itself is the story behind the story. I remember watching an interview with Oprah and J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter books. She was rejected 7 times by 7 different publishers. In her last rejection, the publisher told her, "You will never make money writing children's stories." J.K. Rowling could have burned her manuscript and drowned in self-sabotage, especially while single parenting and going through a divorce. But she persevered and found the 8th publishing company that eventually published the story of our collective childhood, Harry Potter, the boy who lived. Reading these books has taught me the importance of attention, intention, and the narratives we tell ourselves in shifting our habits and behavioral patterns towards a growth mindset. I have a pretty interesting story about how I developed my interest in reading Harry Potter. I first heard about the franchise in Form 2 of high school. There was a girl a year below me who always carried a big, thick Harry Potter book. She was petite, and it was intriguing to see her with this huge, odd-looking book everywhere she went. When the first film Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone was released, the promos were everywhere. However, I had no interest in watching films with kids in robes, witches, and brooms. It wasn't until after I finished high school during my second year at university that I started reading the books and watching the films. At that time, I was at a low point in my young adult life. One day, after finishing my last class, I was wandering around the city and stumbled upon the National Library. I hadn't been to a library in a long time. As I browsed the shelves, my eyes landed on the first Harry Potter book. For reasons I can't fully explain, I spent the entire afternoon there, completely engrossed in the book. I forgot about my loneliness and the challenges I was facing. Discovering that book on that particular day was a turning point. It prevented me from falling into self-destructive habits that could have ruined my second year at university or even longer. Finding a hobby in reading helped me shift my mindset, altering my thoughts, and rewiring my subconscious. I didn't realize it at the time, but this was an application of attention, intention, and repetition, which I now call the AIR method. By disciplining my attention towards my intention through repetition, I was able to create lasting change in my life. We come from a culture where husbands, sons, brothers, boyfriends, nephews, essentially all the male figures you can think of, are worshipped and treated as gods. Women are practically groomed to sustain the patriarchy. It is so ingrained in us that Oftentimes, we are dogmatic about it. We, as women, even alert other women to encourage this phenomenon. If you don't learn to cook, no one will marry you. If you don't marry this one, you will bring shame and disgrace to this family. Keep your hair well kept and your nails well manicured because no one will want you. Don't get fat because no one will marry you. Due to our conditioning, we have mistaken inputting our self-agency for the greater good of nurturing the whole of our being to diminishing our values and standards to be accepted, loved, and adapted to someone else's identity. Men, on the other hand, are molded into the thought pattern that men don't cry. If you cry, you're a sissy. You need to man up and deal with the situation like a man. So they have no room for vulnerability and experience an eruption of emotions that they can't process openly. They can't embody their grief and their wounds, which then manifest in alcoholism, depression, infidelity, and suicidal attempts. These rigid gender norms and societal expectations lead to polarization by creating an environment where individuals are forced into strict roles and behaviors, resulting in significant emotional and psychological strain. For women, the pressure to conform to traditional roles of beauty and domesticity fosters competition and judgment among themselves, creating divisions and reinforcing these restrictive norms. For men, the prohibition of vulnerability and emotional expression results in unprocessed emotions and toxic behaviors, which further alienates them from seeking help and connecting authentically with others. As each gender struggles with their prescribed roles, misunderstandings and resentments build up. And here's where all of this self-sabotage happens that leads to a polarized society where empathy and mutual support are scarce. Men and women become divided by the expectations placed upon them, fostering a culture where mutual understanding and cooperation are replaced by judgment and isolation. This deepens the divide, preventing individuals from embracing their full humanity and fostering genuine connections with one another. The bigger question remains, how can I model a more human, sustainable way of being for the collective? Growing up, my mom often lamented to my sister and me about our negative attitudes and behaviors. Imagine raising two teenage daughters. She would always remind us people's ways can either make them look ugly or beautiful. And this message was especially directed at my sister, who had a bigger attitude than I ever did. It became a daily mantra, a guiding principle meant to shape our behavior throughout our lives. I didn't realize it at the time, but choosing not to show attitude to my grandmother when she provoked me to wash the dishes while my brother lounged in front of the TV with Kentucky Fried Chicken was a practice in mindfulness. Over the years, my grandmother's constant nagging no longer triggered my old behaviors, rolling my eyes, pouting, stamping my feet, and slamming doors. You know. Instead, I began to mentally replace her nagging with her other, more beautiful qualities. The gifts she brought when she visited, her fondness for my dad, and the exciting bedtime stories she told us. Focusing on these positive aspects evoked a sense of beauty and gradually changed my perception of her. This shift in focus was not just a change in attitude, it was a demonstration of neuroplasticity. my brain adapted and rewired itself, reinforcing positive responses over negative ones, ultimately transforming how I experienced my grandmother's presence in my life. If this practice can work wonders for people and situations outside of ourselves, then we can certainly use it to heal our self blame, self doubt, self criticism, and self judgment. We all engage in self sabotage, often without realizing it. Every time you ruminate over a betrayal from high school 10 years ago, it's a symptom of self sabotage. Every time you undermine your confidence and self worth with jealousy and bitterness, it's a symptom of self sabotage. Every time you talk yourself out of opportunities due to fear of failure, it's a symptom of self sabotage. Every time you compare yourself to strangers on Instagram Reels, it's a symptom of self sabotage. Every time you gossip about your friends and family, it's a symptom of self sabotage. By understanding the various forms of self sabotage and learning to label them there and then, every time they show up in your life, you can better position yourself to overcome their effects. Neurologically, our brains have a negativity bias. This means we tend to focus more on bad things and overlook the good ones, likely as a result of evolution. And I discussed this in last week's episode where I explained how feelings of lack originate deep within the caves of our caveman ancestors. So you can check out episode 5 for more of that juicy wisdom. This negativity bias is why we're so deeply affected by failures, fear, shame, grief, childhood wounds, generational traumas, and heartbreaks. We unknowingly train our brains to register these emotions as negative due to self-sabotaging behavior repetitively and attentively. It is pivotal to know that repetition and attention are what neuroplasticity feeds on, and that is the ability of our brains to mold, reshape, and adapt itself to the experiences you create mentally and physically. This explains why creating new habits through meditation, mindfulness, having a morning routine and rituals, setting intentions, and visualizations are indispensable tools to dismantle patterns that no longer serve you. One of my closest friends, whom I've known since high school, she is consumed by her own negativity about herself. She constantly complains, I'm too fat, I'm too old, I'm not pretty enough, I want to start my business, but I don't have the time. I want to go here and there, but I don't have the time. And the list goes on. This narrative she has created for herself has been ingrained since her teenage years, and she's stuck in this loop not because of friends, neighbors, parents, partners, the government, co-workers, or her child, but due to her own thought patterns and behaviors. Every time we talk on the phone, I try to encourage her to cultivate positive thoughts about herself and take small, daily behavioral steps toward realizing her desires. She tries initially, but then inevitably reverts to her negative self-narrative, the same old tune. The reason why it is so challenging to maintain new habits, and this can be illustrated well by the example of New Year's resolutions we make every year, like losing weight or going to the gym. At the start of the year, we pay for the entire month's gym membership, show up enthusiastically on the first day after New Year's Day, and then never return. This happens because our brains naturally seek efficiency, conserving energy for more demanding tasks. We don't consciously think about brushing our teeth or making coffee. We do these things automatically. This efficiency is beneficial because if we had to consciously attend to every action, we'd be exhausted by lunchtime. Again, Repetition and focused attention are key to rewiring our brains, and by consciously repeating positive behaviors, we lay the groundwork for new neural pathways in our conscious minds. In my friend's case, telling herself that she can lose the weight by consistently exercising 3 days a week, scheduling specific workout days, and giving undivided attention to her routine signals to her brain that these actions are important to her. Her perseverance transforms these actions into a habit as the brain filters through the clutter of wants and desires in the subconscious mind and focuses on this particular goal. So mentally, exercising is now in autopilot mode. Understanding how our brain forms habits through consistency and focused attention can significantly aid in cultivating both self-compassion and compassion for others. Knowing that our brains can go wayward without aligning our actions with positive intentions helps us to recognize that others face similar struggles. By acknowledging that negative behaviors often stem from untrained or misaligned thought patterns influenced by our cultural upbringing, societal conditions, evolutionary heritage, and personal beliefs, we can approach others with greater empathy and compassion. This insight allows us to be more patient and supportive, encouraging positive change not only in ourselves but also in those around us. Recognizing this shared human experience of struggling and mental habits helps build a deeper sense of compassion and connection with others. J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series, exemplifies how a growth mindset can mitigate the effects of self-sabotage through her perseverance and resilience. Despite facing numerous rejections from publishers early in her career, she maintained a steadfast belief in her writing ability and the value of her story. Her rejection letters could have easily led to self-doubt and abandonment of her dreams. However, she chose to view each rejection as an opportunity to learn and improve. She revised her manuscript, honed her writing skills, and continued submitting her work, demonstrating a growth mindset focused on effort and improvement rather than succumbing to self-sabotaging thoughts of inadequacy or giving up. J.K. Rowling's journey to success with Harry Potter underscores the importance of perseverance and resilience in the face of setbacks. Her growth mindset allowed her to embrace challenges, learn from failures, and adapt her approach, ultimately achieving remarkable success. By staying true to her vision and maintaining a positive, forward-thinking attitude, Rowling demonstrated how a growth mindset can overcome obstacles and flourish, showing there is no room for self-sabotage when one is committed to growth and learning. Too often we criticize ourselves based on misconceptions about these shared emotions. The purpose of being human is to use our vulnerability, shame, grief, fear, failures, wounds, and heartbreaks to craft a life of compassion and awe. This journey leaves footprints of inspiration for those who need it. Remember, you are already someone's inspiration and teacher. Thank you for listening to Embody Your True Color Love. If you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and share your review of our podcast. Your feedback helps our podcast extend its healing reach on a global scale. connect with me on our social media platforms on Zappa Farms. You can find all of the links in the show notes below. I eagerly anticipate hearing your stories each time, and I'm open to suggestions for future topics to explore. Your engagement fuels our journey together.